Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of R-Rated, where today we're looking at the fourth episode of the MCU Hawkeye series. I almost said partners, am I right? Though parenthood is a pretty big part of this episode, as we will see. The title of this episode kind of gives away the game a little bit in terms of what the theme we're coming at today is going to be. The vast majority of this episode frames itself in some way around various, partners that Hawkeye has had throughout his career, personal partners, professional partners, all of these things, his past, his present, all of these things colliding together. And it fuses into this really interesting kind of pastiche of, tragedy and just this kind of tired old man sort of situation. It's interesting. The longer this series goes on, the more that it's reminding me in some ways of some of the elements of Logan. So itself being based off of was it Old Man Logan, a miniseries that was so popular that it wound up spinning off into a bunch of extra comic series. One of them, I believe, was Old Man Hawkeye. Where same kind of idea. He's getting on and he's losing all these skills that kept him going. Though granted, here we're not seeing Hawkeye isn't the only thing that Hawkeye has really been losing is his hearing. His skills are still on point to the point where at one point in the episode he actually shows off that he can use a little coin-shaped Christmas ornament to turn off an old tube TV from 10 feet away. Like he just kind of flicks it, like snaps his fingers and flicks it and turns off the TV. So he hasn't missed a beat in terms of his actual skills. But we kind of see that like all of the decisions he's made and the life that he's lived have started to weigh on him a little bit. So for one, we have Natasha Romanoff is obviously a huge piece of his character, and we kind of see two sides of that relationship here. One being kind of a side that we already have seen a bit, that like the two of them were best friends, they were partners to the end, and his continuing, not so much guilt, though there might be some guilt there, but he's still kind of mourning Natasha's loss, even now, at least a year and change after the events of Endgame. Noises from downstairs. But in addition to that, we also are are being told about, how they first, interacted with each other. And we've seen this. It's interesting that like earlier in this year, we got Black Widow, which gave us a bit of a bit more framing to, Natasha's past and how she came to be part of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers and all of that stuff. And now we're getting Clint's half of that same story. So we're getting Clint talking about how he was sent on a mission to take her out, and then at the exact moment he couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to do it. This comes about when Kate is asking, like, what's the best shot you've ever made, or best shot you ever took, and he said that it was the one that he didn't make, which was this. He couldn't bring himself to actually take her down because he saw in her that she wanted out of the situation she was in, and so instead he extracted her and brought her into S.H.I.E.L.D., and the rest is history. And it's still, even thinking back to that, it's still something that kind of weighs on him. And there's a point very early in the episode. So not only Jack but Eleanor are both home when Clint and Kate arrive there at the end of the last episode, and they have a sit down where things cool over a little bit, where basically Kate says like, well, I'm kind of working with him on a case, and we're helping each other out on this, and Clint's like, I mean, yeah, I guess so. I guess that's kind of accurate. Eleanor pulls him off to the side and is like, she's not an Avenger. She's not this unbreakable person. Please, you need to like keep her out of this. I want her to live. And she does a really good thing and a really bad thing. The really bad thing is, so she's talking with Clint and saying like she's not an Avenger, she's not one of you, she's not a superhero, she can't be doing this stuff. And Clint says that she's actually pretty good at it. And her response is, yeah, Natasha Romanoff was pretty good at it too, but being good isn't enough to keep you alive. And it's just like, oh my God, that's one of those like stepping so far over the line to make your point. Like, there are ways to make that point that makes sense. This was like, oh boy, that was a lot. I had to pause the episode when I saw that, because it was like, whoa, okay, that's a lot. The good point that she makes, though, she does appeal to his, sense of parenthood, where he asks, like, do you have kids? And I don't even think he answers. She's just kind of like, yeah, that's what I thought. Like, and basically is like, this is my child that you're taking with you and doing these things. You need to walk away from this. And it does seem like it's something that does kind of impact him a bit. Like, it's unclear, like, did he just not kind of think of her in that kind of light before, or has he just been so wrapped up in trying to like finish this case and be done with it that he hasn't really cared as much as perhaps he could have for her safety? But he does tell her that, like, he's not walking away from the case, but he will make sure that she stays safe, which is like, okay, cool, I guess. Similarly, on the parenthood front, after he leaves, Jack and Eleanor wind up kind of, sillily flirting a little bit and like dancing a little bit to chestnuts roasting on an open fire, and all of this stuff. And Kate actually looks up and kind of smiles for a second. Like, it actually seems like one of those things where, like, this family unit could actually potentially work. Granted, we are pretty sure at this point that Jack's no good, and we find out later in the episode that he's definitely up to no good. But it's kind of this tragic little moment where this, the three of them actually do have a little something going on. And like, he even says, he's like, oh, you know what they say, life is short, you never know what you're going to get, which is randomly smashing Forrest Gump into the middle of just life is short, I guess. And both Eleanor and Kate kind of chuckle about it and say, like, every time you try to use an aphorism, you get it all jumbled up. And apparently another one was, absence makes the heart grow older. And it's just kind of like, it's just a sweet little moment that they have. And I think it's actually really nice. And it makes it double awful when we know later on that Jack is a bad guy. And it's a bummer, but it's a very effective sort of scene. So in the realm of partners in the present, we get kind of this distinction between, the quasi partnership that he has with Kate and the one that he has with Laura, who is his wife, who he, I think, twice has, go looking up information for him while he's trying to take on some other aspect of this stuff. Now, granted, she agreed to the safe house routine that they had going for many years, and she had no issue with taking in, the Avengers for a while they figured out a game plan. And it's unclear, like, at what point she kind of like really like dove in on this stuff, because when she gets called to look up Sloan Limited, the company that Maya's number 2 Kazi works at, or founded actually, she uses coded language to relay the information back to Clint. And it seems like it's less that, she's worried about the line being bugged per se, and more just not wanting to talk about it in front of the kids, because Cooper and Lila are just kind of in the room there. After a second, when she's trying to ask something more specific that the coded language doesn't work for, she switches over to speaking German. And it's an interesting couple of steps there, and I assume that the kids don't know German, but they are visibly not fooled by this whole thing and are like, oh, it's Dad. Yeah, okay. And like, okay, all right. So they're kind of in the know on this, even if, Mom is trying to keep things under wraps a little bit. But she's, really on point with it. She knows information about like the Rolex, the watch that was getting stolen in the first episode is apparently important. Like, it is it gets described as belonging to someone who's essentially in deep cover. And if it ever got found by the tracksuit mafia that their cover would be blown, and he uses the term "goodbye friend," like they're probably dead. So I've been trying to figure out like who he could be referring to. I thought at first maybe it could have been a keepsake from Natasha, but it is a men's watch, and she doesn't seem like she would really care about those to start with. I thought like, okay, maybe it's Tony, but him and Hawkeye never were particularly close, and there's no like cover to be blown there. I thought like, okay, could it be something to do with Scott or Hank or one of them? Like he had a Pym arrow, but neither of them are particularly undercover. And the only one that makes a little bit of sense to me out of nowhere, my expectation is that the watch at this point is going to be either a pivotal point in the last episode or is going to be the linchpin for a stinger that leads into something else. And my long shot guess is that this red-faced Rolex belongs to Matt Murdock. There is the recent announcement by Kevin Feige that Matt Murdock is going to be like, if they have a Daredevil thing going forward, that Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox will be Matt Murdock for that. We already saw the side of Kingpin's body, and we know how all that ties together. And this episode also got into a discussion on Maya's boss, who I have to assume is Kingpin, being increasingly upset with the attention that's being brought to this organization. I'm wondering if that would be kind of the end result here, is that this is Matt Murdock's watch for whatever reason. Because I just running through everyone else who we've seen at the Avengers compound, like no one is really that undercover there. Yeah, I can't think of almost anyone at the Avengers compound who would have like a secret identity at this point. Yeah, can't really think of anybody. So that's my long shot guess. We'll see how that goes. Maybe that's a stinger thing. And I'm wondering if they were to bring back Matt and Kingpin, if they would kind of reinvent the characters, like same actors, but kind of erasing the Netflix series from the canon to sort of start over with them. Or would they be canon? Again, I really need to go back and watch season 3 of Daredevil so I can be caught up on that. But anyway, the flip side of the stability of Laura as a partner, we have the far less stable like partnership with Kate, where she keeps trying to wedge herself in there and be like, hey, talk to me. We got to be partners on this. And he's very blunt about the fact that it's like, we're not partners. We're not friends. Like, no. And an offhand comment about, about being like together with family and stuff for Christmas winds up prompting Kate to go find Hawkeye, who is currently, hunkered down at Kate's aunt's apartment, covered in frozen daiquiri mix to like use as ice packs. And she brings like Christmas movies and ugly sweaters, and I guess they're not ugly sweaters, they're just Christmas sweaters, but and all of this stuff, and just to like cheer him up. And also like the flip side being that like he's appreciative of it, but he's also immediately talking business about like the instincts that she had about Jack were dead on, which kind of turns down her mood, both because one, she's kind of more interested in having like a nice holiday kind of moment, but also she just came back from actually feeling a little bit okay about Jack, to being, having it confirmed that like, oh yeah, no, he's in with these bad guys. They kind of talk about trick arrows and stuff, and apparently trick arrows are a finite resource. Like the shaft of the arrows themselves are like a really specific hot item that he doesn't have basically any more of. The arrowheads can be made more of, but he doesn't have the base for them. I was a little unclear about that. And they were talking about how the trick arrows are being stored at an NYPD facility near the Brooklyn Bridge or something, or the Manhattan Bridge or whatever. And it's like, wait, but why? Why is that the case? I was a little unclear on what the deal with that was. And I don't know if it was because he like left a bunch of arrows behind at her apartment or what, but I guess they just had a bunch of his arrows for some reason. I don't know if I missed something. I might have missed something. But Clint winds up teaching Kate the little coin trick to get her to literally from down a hallway turn off the TV with the coin. All set to Mele Kalikimaka, which is a great little send-up to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, one of my favorite holiday movies. I was very happy to hear that song turn up, and it always puts a smile on my face. I'm a sucker for that one. I'm a sucker for that whole movie, honestly. The LARPers come back. Kate, winds up actually warming up to them like way better than Clint did, and kind of strikes up a deal with them where the LARPers, if they provide them with some like materials for them, the LARPers, will happily make new sets of like LARPing armor, but also some actual armor for, the two of them, which I assume means that we are going to get some version of the classic Hawkeye costume for the final episode of the show. I don't think he's going to have the big wing things, or if they do, she's gonna be like, and he's gonna be like, no. But I thought that was kind of cute. They also have cute banter about her. She's like walking down a hallway at the end here and is like, so how do you deal with the giant bow problem where she's got just a long bow and it's almost as tall as she is, and she's just kind of like awkward in carrying it around. He's like, oh, I have a collapsible bow. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And it's just like such a little basic like acknowledgement of that, but I kind of dig it. And at the end of this episode, what she's doing in this apartment is she's breaking into an apartment because they've located the Rolex, which has me double interested about like, because if she's interested, if the Tracksuit Mafia, potentially under Kingpin's control, are interested in this, there's a very good chance it could be something to do with Matt Murdock. I don't know if all of those are connected the way that they seem like they could be. But basically, she goes in this apartment, and upon entering, in the top corner next to the door, there's this rounded white thing. It's like a quarter circle, and it's got a red light that just starts blinking. And my first thought is, oh, it's a security alarm. Fuck. Because I've lived in places that have had, house alarms and stuff, and some of them do just kind of look like that. And then a bunch of strobes start going off, and she uses the like gummy or the putty arrows, whatever they call them, to like deal with that. And then she's talking with Clint on a headset about it, and he's just like, wait, oh God. So after she finds the watch, she finds a list of Clint's family, presumably because they're going to threaten them, essentially. And he's like, get out of there right now. That's a silent alarm. Maya's there, fights Kate, and then someone else is out on the roof fighting Clint, and he thinks it's Maya, but suddenly they're all on the roof, and it's a 2 versus 1 fight. So the masked person and Maya are not on the same team. Maya eventually gets out of there after getting shocked by a bunch of like red electrical stuff. And the last thing you see before the pivotal moment is a wrist thing of little tube. It looks like a wrist thing of tubes. I don't know how to describe it. And it's like, oh shit. And like right as this, you get there, mask comes off, and Yelena Belova, I believe is the last name for that, is under the mask. She has arrived from the stinger from Black Widow to take on Hawkeye. After she, does this for whatever reason. I don't know why she takes off the mask. It doesn't, like, it serves a purpose to the audience, but it doesn't really serve a purpose to the characters. It certainly doesn't serve a purpose for Yelena. But she dives out of there, and, Kate starts asking Hawkeye, like, hey, if we're going to be partners, you got to start telling me stuff. What's going on with this? And he's like, we are not partners. I'm not telling you this stuff. And that's a Black Widow assassin. You need to go home and get out of this immediately. This just got very real, very fast, and we're all in super duper danger. And I thought, and I'm a little curious where this is going to go from here, because we kind of have a lot of pieces in play, and they're all kind of facing each other. And I don't know. I am curious how the situation with Yelena is going to resolve. So he says that someone has hired a Black Widow assassin, and we saw from Black Widow that she was sent on this mission by Val. And it's kind of a question of like, okay, so what's going on here? Are these like Dark Avengers out to take down the OGs one by one? The whole, Avengers organization? I don't know. But it was a very fun surprise, and it's our first real connection between any of these disparate parts of Phase 4 so far. We finally are seeing things start to weave together. You could count maybe the Blade, voiceover cameo at the end of Eternals or something too, but honestly, this is the first like actual here we go, it's connected point here. So very happy to see that. Just a couple other random sort of things. So earlier in the show, they did this thing where Kate was using her phone to log in at Bishop Security. And I was curious. I'm like, we're really close on this shot. I wonder if I could figure out what the password that she uses is. Maybe that's like, back in the 2000s, they had all sorts of ARGs where if you paid enough attention, you could use that info. But I realized like, the letter inputs are not happening at the same time as the finger presses, which seems kind of lazy to me. Like it doesn't need the password itself doesn't need to matter, but like make the little dots of the password appear as her thumb, boop, taps on the thing. It's not hard to do. I don't know. But this time, in an elevator leaving from Kate's family's penthouse, Hawkeye starts texting Laura, asking her to like look up Sloan Limited. And as he's doing it, he's tapping on various keys, and it's like, oh no, we've zoomed in on this phone that is definitely a green screen style effect here, or it's just a video being played in full screen. And it doesn't even remotely line up with the things that are being typed. Letters are showing up when his thumbs are entirely off of it. The letters aren't even close. It's like, why did you do it like that? That's a really not good looking shot. It really is awkward and strange. And it's like, I don't know, man, either use an actual phone and just have him type out his line or something, because that looked strange. So there's some other thoughts here. When they're planning out what's going on and like who's in the bad guys group and all that, Kate is using a marker. It turns out to be a permanent marker on one of her aunt's posters on the wall, on the glass of the poster, like in its frame. And I'm wondering, so it's played up for like a joke. I'm wondering if that's actually going to be a problem later. Like one of the bad guys is actually going to get into this apartment, see this, and be like, yup, these, like, now we've got double confirmation that, this or this or this. Not like they don't know that Kate's in on things at this point, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's going to come up in some way. It's such an odd little specific thing that like, I don't know. The morning after the discussion between Kate and Clint about his time as Ronin, he's drinking from a mug that says Thanos was right. And the graffiti on the urinal at least made sense in terms of the universe that they're living in. But like the mug is an odd choice, because what that implies, among other things, is that Kate's aunt owned a mug that was like dark and sarcastic, or just dark and sincere, and that Thanos is right has just become kind of a saying in general in the MCU at this point, because like she would have had to buy that from somebody. It's just such a weird thing. The graffiti worked and was like a good thing to have there. I don't think the cup does. I think the cup is kind of not so good there. Also, nobody trawled the ruins of the Avengers compound looking to make sure they didn't leave anything behind. Like, I know that the Marvel one-shots are kind of left out of, the public consciousness in terms of how these movies and things work, but Item 47 already did this after the Battle of New York, where there were 46 items recovered, and these two like bank thieves, find a Chitauri weapon essentially, and go on a spree with it. So after that, I guess S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist in the same way anymore. But like you would think that someone would go, hey, we should like make sure nothing got lost here. Like just dig it all up down to the foundation, and we're gonna like manage all this stuff. I mean, I guess Tony wasn't around, and he would have been probably the first person to be like, "Yep, security, we gotta figure this out." Yeah, and that's kind of like a last thought to this episode. I really like it's kind of a 1-2 punch, but the conversation that Kate and Clint have at night after they've spent the day planning, and they've been like having like mixed smoothie drinks and stuff, and they've been trying to like have a good time while they're figuring out what next steps are and stuff. She winds up asking him about Natasha, and then basically figures out that he's also the Ronin, and she seems a little betrayed by this because she's like, you were a hero, and he's like, I was a weapon, and like that's kind of the main, separation between the two and how they think of Hawkeye himself. But like, it was just kind of this interesting moment where he's like, he essentially trusted his handlers essentially to point him in the right direction. But once everyone was dead, once half the world was gone and his wife and family were gone and all of this, he just kind of lost that direction and just started being a weapon. And it's just, it's kind of a cool highlight of, what this character's been through. And he's really been through a lot. I have to give this show credit also. For one, I'm going to give this episode a 7. I think the previous episode was better by a decent amount. I think that though all of these episodes have been really, really consistent. And I have to say that like, in the same way WandaVision is probably the perfect TV show that they've had so far, I think that this could possibly have been done up as a movie. I think they maybe could have made it work. You would have had to trim out a lot in order to make it fit size-wise, because I think over the course of the 6 episodes, this is probably like 3.5, maybe 4 hours in total. But I think that this kind of, it feels like one continuous plot that's working really well, and I think that was kind of cool. I would love to see a movie style edit of it happen at some point, but I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah, no, like I said, I would give this one a 7. I think it's solid. I think it's a great advancement of these characters and their arcs. I think that Clint is finally, like, not that he hasn't been a compelling character in the past, but there's so much depth to him in this show, and I really appreciate, because he started out in Thor and the first Avengers being kind of a blank slate, and it wasn't until Age of Ultron that he started to have at least the tiniest fragment of a character, and he's been slowly developing that character over the last, I guess, 6 years now. So it's great to see a lot more out of him. It's great to see Jeremy Renner breathing a lot of life into this, and Hailee Steinfeld doing an awesome job with Kate. She's been so good for this. I'm really, really excited to see where Kate Bishop goes from here as a character, both in the show and out of it. I would love to hear what you guys think of this episode and these arcs that are being welded and drawn together and all of these things. I think this has been kind of a shorter episode than normal. I'm trying to condense my thoughts a little bit more, because it's very easy for me to, I could ramble on for an hour about an hour or more about any of these things I'm watching, but I'm trying to focus my thoughts a little bit more. I'm trying to focus that weapon, I guess. And I would love to hear what you think about this review. And feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. If there's anybody out there who's been enjoying Hawkeye or has been hating Hawkeye, I would love to hear what they have to think. I would love to, share my thoughts with them too. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. I'll catch you tomorrow for Spider-Man 3. And we'll be back next Wednesday for the 5th episode of Hawkeye. So see you then. Bye.